Hey, what's up, fellow creators? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics, and today I want to show you some techniques on speeding up your workflow and meeting deadlines. Something that a lot of artists tend to overlook when trying to create professional work, and something I feel will be very important to discuss on here. So, uh, first things first, let's go ahead and just start with a random sketch, and I want to explain one of the things that's helped me try to meet deadlines. And when I say deadlines, my primary source of work for illustration is currently storyboards. So deadlines are actually really tough in that game. More so than even comics. Like comics can be tricky when you've got to produce a monthly book for sure. But generally, you have a bit of a group effort there, and also, if something does happen and a deadline gets pushed back, it's not really always the end of the world. Where storyboards, it's not that way. There's no choice. You might get lucky and they may push it back an hour or two or something, but really, you just got to meet the deadline. So what happens there is sometimes you forego even quality at the sake of the deadline. Where comics, I think the common consensus or understanding is, if it looks good, maybe we could wait a little longer. We want this thing to look amazing, that kind of thing. But in all reality, you have to realize as an artist, as a business person, because that's ultimately what you always are. Even as an artist, you're still a bit of a business person. You've got to wear a few hats there. You've got to remember that something produced is always going to outweigh some immaculate, beautiful conception that never makes it to finality. So you've got to conform to that schedule. And an easy way to not conform to that schedule is to just never pay attention to the clock. So what I've done is I put the little clock up to the side. You notice in most of my videos I try to make sure that's not on. But on this particular one I did because I want to show you how if I just kind of, scribble away, how long it may take me to produce a face. But then I'm going to actually time myself and produce another face and see if I can at least make it, I guess the word would be sellable or acceptable. So by doing this, it allows you to start thinking about your art and going, okay, where can I trim the fat? Where can I, get this stuff to look decently enough, quickly enough. It doesn't have to be the Mona Lisa. In fact, it's not going to be able to be for majority of your pieces. And another thing to think about is this: if you look back at your work, which you always should, you learn a lot by looking at your previous work. Sometimes it's hard because you look back and you go, "Oh my God, what was I thinking? I was such a horrible artist, whatever." But that's because you should actually revel in that moment because you're actually looking back and seeing how much you've changed and evolved as an artist. So it should be really exciting to look back and go, wow, I can totally draw faces better than I was drawing them there. And that's a good thing. So you should always look back and see how much you've improved your work, but also you should be able to look back and see something and go, wow, I think it took me all day to draw that particular piece. I could draw that in a few hours now. And then that's the other part I'm getting at. Like, you got to remember that the work that you slave over and strive over for countless hours, and at some point you're going to look back at it and you're going to go, man, that's easy. I can draw that in just a short amount of time now. So you can't stress over every piece because you're eventually going to you're going to move past that. You're going to find a quicker way to do hair, a quicker way to get the shapes of your faces down, all those things. So it's better that you just produce consecutive product. In turn, you'll get there anyways. I guess is the point I'm trying to make, that if you're always giving up and throwing your pieces to the side, that's not good enough, then nothing gets produced, and ultimately you're defeating the purpose anyways. It's better that you produce consecutive product and then study that work, and then you'll just progressively get better and quicker. Okay, so as I'm rambling about that, there's a quick, rough sketch, right? Obviously, I'm using Manga Studio here. Great program for illustration, so check it out if you like it. No, I'm not paid to say that. I just think it's a good program. All right, so I'll convert this to blue line, which I love that it's just one click, add a layer, and then get in here a little tighter and just clean it up a bit. So, and this is traditionally how I draw. This is just about the speed, and I kind of take my time. Um, I may Control Z back a bit. Now another thing to save time, because it's the main focus of this entire video, is just how to save time, how to meet deadlines. Excuse me. Another thing to save time is try your best to not use Control Z if you're a digital artist. I'm not saying don't erase. I'm not saying don't fix things that are glaring mistakes, but just don't get in the habit of just always going back, and then never living with anything. So, that's part of it. And then the other part is to look at your work and just pick out the glaring mistakes and go for those first. So, if you're watching the clock and you're trying to get a piece done, go for the things that are obviously the most noticeable and the worst areas that need fixing, and save those things that, maybe you think the eyebrows are a little funky here, but maybe they're passable. So you save those for the end as far as your final touches or whatever. And if you've got time, then great. Now, another thing to do to save time is lay out all your work and systematically hit each area a little bit through the entire process. Now, some people can't work in that fashion. I know that I wasn't as good at working in that fashion until I started doing more and more storyboards. So now what I do is I lay out my entire storyboards and I glance over every aspect, or I may do all the people in the scenes, and then I may go back and do all my buildings, then I may go back and do and I glance over each area, and usually I stage it in sketch, pencils, and then finish pencils, or if it's going to color, I got to tone the work and stuff like that. So I do it in stages, that way that everything gets a bit of work done to it, and then I'm completing the entire project in a series of steps. And what happens there, if the clock runs out and I've got to turn in my work, then I've done enough on each piece to make it work, and not say, well, I did the first 5 frames, but I didn't get a chance to do much on the last 4 or whatever the frame count is. So that wouldn't be acceptable. They can't use that. So now, again, storyboards are a bit different than comics. So if you're more of a comic illustrator, then maybe that doesn't apply as much. I still think that you should thumbnail the entire book, go through and do all your roughs, all your clean pencils, and then all your inks. And if you think about it, that's how it would be done if you worked with a team, and hopefully you are working with a team, because I know the struggles of doing a book simply by yourself. It's a lot of work. But if you're working with a team, you stage all that work and you pass it from, player to player, if you will. And that's how you get the entire project done in a timely fashion. It's real easy when you're one guy doing a book to absorb yourself into any one aspect and kind of lose time. And I can attest to that because, my Blackstone comic doesn't come out as nearly as much as I would hope for. But then, I'm a storyboard artist. I still own and operate a business on the side. So I've definitely got enough things going, providing for a family and all that pulls me from it. But if I was solely just the illustrator for that book, I could definitely put out a book a month at the way that I complete work. But it's a matter of being able to dedicate just to that one thing. So if you stage the work and you simplify the process, you're going to have a lot easier time getting that stuff done. And even though creativity doesn't live and die by a clock, so to speak, like I know that a lot of artists, if you try to tell them, well, you've got to produce work consecutively, you've got to stick to your deadline. Well, I don't always feel creative every day, every hour of the day, whatever. And and that's tough. Sometimes you got to get inspired, and you got to find what does that for you. For me, it's music and science fiction movies are kind of my inspiration. So that's what I have to go to. Now, as far as motivation, it's my son. It's my family. It's like get it done. No ifs, ands, or buts, get it done. But I also come from a business background where I've owned and operated my own business, and I had to step it up at times. So there was no real choice of, well, I'll just kind of lounge around and wait till I feel creative or inspired. You don't get those. You're not afforded those opportunities when working for yourself and being self-employed a lot of times. So I've lived that way since I was 18. So I'm fully aware of, how to get motivated as far as that goes. But then inspiration, you just have to find what really gets you inspired and excited about what you're doing. Maybe it's drawing from your favorite artists, looking at some of your old comics and remembering what got you into wanting to be an illustrator. That's really important to do. It's like I can look at some of my old Spider-Man. I remember Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man 1 was the first thing that got me into drawing and drawing comics, really. I guess I doodled before then. But I can look at that and be transported back to that moment in time and that feeling of being inspired to want to create comics. So sometimes you got to do that too. Okay, so here's the face. Let's take away the original blue line. Not a perfect face, and I would just keep noodling around with it till I got it better and better. And I might end up spending a half hour on a face like this. But now the idea is, okay, that's me just kind of, zoning out. And let me merge these down. And just doing a face and not fully shading it yet, but doing a face that just could really be done faster. It just really could be simplified and not so time consuming. And I got something funky going on with their lip there, don't I? But so, so let's just try to take, another example of this, and let me try to streamline this, and I'm also going to time it. So let me add new layer. Let's see. All right, we're at 11:35, and I'll just go ahead and start. And I'm going to try to do a 5-minute face and see if I can get it somewhere in the ballpark of this quality, hopefully near as acceptable or whatever. So I'm going to try to hurry up and get my landmarks down. So the shape of the head I generally do first, maybe the positioning of the neck, the center line of the face, the overall position and direction of the eyes, the nose. And I'm looking at the other design, but I'm not studying. I'm not trying to draw faster because that's already drawn. I'm actually just, I want it to look somewhat like the same picture, but it's probably not going to because my main focus is speed here. But I guess it is a bit of a cheat because I have reference this time. But that's not really the concept that I'm trying to convey here. I'm conveying more that, with your fundamental knowledge of how to draw these things, you're just kind of shorthanding the information and getting it in there and letting time be your motivator, where before time wasn't my motivator. So we started at 11:35, right? I better write that down. Yeah, the thing that I use is actually a stopwatch. I have one on my phone, and I use that when I'm doing storyboards because I really don't have the choice there to get lost into the work as much as I have that problem because I love creating nicer looking pieces. So if you let me, I would draw the same pin-up face shot, whatever, for days. Really trying to refine it. But I just know that's not going to make anybody happy. It's not going to make anybody any money. And although money shouldn't be your total defining motivation, it definitely has to be part of what you're doing to make a living. So, all right. So where am I at? 2 minutes in. So and this is a 5-minute face. So I need to hurry up and just get the main shapes in there, like that, and then convert this to blue line. Like that, add another layer. Actually, I'll tone that down just a little bit, add another layer, and then get in here and just try to clean this up. Go right to clean up. And the thing is the more you do this, the better you'll get at at nailing the amount of rough lines that you can put down to go right to cleanup. Like for instance, some of these I'll practice and I'll go right to inks from that rough blue line, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of a neat process, and you'll kind of learn a lot in that process and see what you can really accomplish with some pretty rough lines. Another quick little shorthand effects to do. Uh, things like this, you can fill in, say, the top of her eyes and almost nothing on the bottom. It still works well for things like eyes. It works well for a lot of things. Somebody can clue me in the description below, but I want to say it's drawing with negatives or negative space or something like that. And it's really common in comics, and you can use it for storyboards too, and pretty much any kind of illustration work. So you don't always have to trace every object. In fact, it looks a lot more impressive when you understand light and shade and you don't trace every object. Somebody that comes to mind that does it really well is David Finch. He does some really neat things with the reversal of his shadows. And then also Bern Hogarth, his dynamic light and shade, I believe it's Dynamic Light and Shade, is an amazing book and really worthwhile for conveying that technique. Just looking at the clock, I'm running out of time fast here, so I should just shut up and draw. And that's my other tip. Another way to save time is just shut up and draw. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go to the most important areas first, the eyes. Are the most important, so I would make sure that those are done. And I just ran out of time. Son of a... Okay, I'm going to blame that on the fact that I was talking. So I'm just going to go a little bit over. I'm going to beg my editor for more time. Please, I'm almost done. Just hold on. They're yelling at you right now. It's got to go to print. It's got to go to press. Whatever the terminology is these days. My stuff's all digital, so I don't know. It's got to go to the FTP, man. You got to upload now. Now. Another way to save time is, oh, my internet just crashed. Oh, man, I can't believe it. The internet's down. The entire nets just went down. Okay, so there's my quick. I gotta stop because I'm over by a minute. That's sucky. Okay, so there it is. So definitely some some flaws in it. But now what I'll do is try to take away my initial blue line, take away the other one so you don't compare it. And then if you didn't have to compare it, I don't know that it would be horrible. I don't know that it's great. It's but is it acceptable? I guess. And I'm just going to throw in a few more lines because I feel like it needs some shadow in the mouth. So I would do these quick little touch-ups. But this is more of an exercise and maybe an exercise in futility. But it's something I think is highly important to developing not only your style but your speed of your style and being able to get stuff knocked out and out there on a deadline. So I would definitely say try techniques like this. And then do them over and over again. Like repetition is definitely the key to producing art and to producing stuff in a timely fashion and just developing your overall ability to do it. So it's all about repetition. It's just like when somebody asks me, hey, how do you get better at this? And the first thing I say is the last thing they want to hear, and that's all. You just draw it 100 times. And no one likes that response. It's funny how that's like not what they were looking for. They're looking for like the golden egg, I'm gonna say, oh well, here's the secret. You just do this, and it happens instantaneously. And that's not how it works. It's all through repetition, and just straight up perspiration, working hard at it. So at any rate, that's how I would do it. And Obviously, the first one's a little bit nicer. The proportions are a bit better, but the second one was definitely faster, and that's going to allow me in turn to get my work done and you know meet a deadline. So at any rate, hopefully this video has been helpful for you and shed some light on a little bit of that topic. And if you got any questions, be sure to drop it in the comments section below. Also, let me know what you'd like to see in the future, because I always add that to my video request list and I try to address that as soon as possible. And at least one video a week, so be sure to subscribe and share the videos if you get a chance, and we will talk to you soon. Keep drawing, keep having fun.